Okay, because there were so many questions about the quiz, I decided to do a video of the quiz problems. This first problem, h of x equals x squared minus 10x plus 3. You were asked to write this in vertex form and identify the vertex. So in order to write in vertex form, you have to complete the square. So the first thing you do is isolate your quadratic and your linear terms. Okay? Then you take half of your middle term, which is negative 10, and square it. So that would be 25. Or you can leave it as negative 5 squared. If I add 25 to keep the equation balanced, I also have to subtract 25. Okay? Then you're going to write this polynomial here, x squared minus 10x plus 25 in factored form. It's always going to be the square root of x and what you squared to get the 25. Okay? Then 3 minus 25 is negative 22. So your vertex form is x minus 5 squared minus 22. Remember, vertex form is a times x minus h squared plus k. Alright? So your vertex would be the opposite of this, which is 5, and negative 22. A tells you whether it opens up or opens down, whether you have a minimum or a maximum. In this case, A is 1. So this parabola would open up, meaning this is a minimum value. All right. The other part of this equation or this problem was to find your y-intercept. Well, your y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So you're going to take your function and plug 0 in for x. And of course we get 3. So our y-intercept was 0, 3. Okay. We have one more part of this problem. It says find your x-intercept. I'm going to go back and do that right here on top. If I take my vertex form, x minus 5 squared minus 22, and set it equal to 0, because x-intercept is when y is equal to 0, and solve this. That'll be x minus 5 squared equals 22. Inverse of squaring is square root. Take the square root of both sides. X minus 5 equals plus or minus the square root of 22. And then add 5 to both sides. So x will be equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 22. So my x-intercepts are 5 plus root 22, 0, and 5 minus 22, 0. And that was one problem on the quiz. This next problem, you were asked to write it in factored form. So the first thing you need to do is take your calculator and find one of your factors. Okay? So when you graph it on your calculator, you'll see your x-intercept. One x-intercept is negative 2. So when you divide it, you're going to divide x plus 2 into negative 2x cubed minus x squared plus x minus 10. Okay? So x in the negative 2x cubed is negative 2x squared. And then you multiply it, you get negative 2x cubed minus 4x squared. I notice a lot of students do not do this. When you subtract, you have to change both sides. just because plus, plus. So that's 3x squared, and you bring down your x. X into 3x squared is 3x, and you get 3x squared plus 6x. Then you subtract, so that will change both signs. So it's negative 5x minus 10. X into negative 5x is negative 5. Multiply, you get negative 5x minus 10. Subtract, change both of your signs. 0, and it should be 0 because we know that x plus 2 is a factor of this. So we have one factor, x plus 2. So degree 3, so we know we have 2 more factors, okay? So now that you have negative 2x squared plus 3x minus 5, we can factor that to determine the other 2 factors. So negative 2x squared plus 3x minus 5. What I would do, because we're used to factoring when our a is positive, I would factor out a negative 1, 2x squared minus 3x plus 5. Okay? Then I would do my a, c, which is 2 times 5, which is 10, and my b, which is negative 3. So we're looking for factors of 10 that add up to negative 3. In this case, it'll be negative 5 and 2. Okay? So, the illegal move, you put 2x minus 5, 2x plus 2. And the 2 is coming from your a term that we didn't divide out at the beginning. And then you drop the greatest common factor out of each one. So in this case, we would drop 2 out of here, leaving that to be x plus 1. This greatest common factor is 1, and then your negative. So when I take this back up here, you can either put a negative 1 in front or distribute it back in. I would take the negative 1 in front, and these would be your zeros. And that was one of the questions on your quiz. Next, you had to use algebraic tiles to complete the square. First, they ask you what was represented by this. And of course, this polynomial is x squared plus 2x plus 5. Yes, some of you had different problems, but it's going to be the same concept. So I want to take my tiles and try to make it into a perfect square. So I have my x squared here, and I'm going to put my x here, and I'm going to put my other x here, because we know that x squared is x by x, right? And so then I have one space here to put a 1. One space to put a 1. Well, I have 5 ones, so that means that I have 4 ones left. Right? So this is x plus 1, x plus 1. So the factored form or vertex form of this polynomial is x plus 1 squared, but then I have a 4 left over. If I didn't know how to do it with tiles, even though we practiced with tiles, I could just complete the square on this polynomial. Half of 2 squared is 1. Got to add 1. I also got to subtract 1. So that's x plus 1 squared plus 4. So if you couldn't do it with the tiles, you should be able to do it by completing the square. Some of you had different problems, but same concept. You want to balance the 2 sides of your square instead of trying to put everything on one side. This last problem, you had to graph it, in order to determine your x-intercepts. So if you put it in the calculator and graph it, so I'm going to put it in my calculator and graph it. I want to make sure that I'm remembering the zeros correctly. I got 6x to the 4th minus 7x cubed minus 37x squared plus 8x plus 12. And I can just go to my table and determine my zeros. When y is 0, I can quickly see that x equals -2 and x equals 3. So my zeros that I can see from the calculator are -2 and +3. So that means that x plus 2 is a factor and x minus 3 is a factor. Degree is 4, so I know I have 2 more factors to find. So in order to find those factors, you can either multiply these two things together and divide, or you can divide each one individually. I'm going to divide each one individually just so I can show you each step. So I'm going to do x plus 2 divided into 6x to the 4th minus 7x cubed minus 37x squared plus 8x plus 12. So that's x into 6x to the 4th, which is 6x cubed. When you multiply, you get 6x to the 4th plus 12x cubed. Change both signs. That gives you -19x cubed minus 37x squared. X in the -19x cubed is -19x squared. When you multiply, you get -19x cubed minus 38x squared. Don't forget, when you subtract, it changes both signs. That gives you x squared plus 8x. X into x squared, of course, is just x. And you get x squared plus 2x. Don't forget to change your signs. And that gives you 6x plus 12. X into 6x is 6. 6 times x plus 2 is 6x plus 12. We did it correctly because we ended up with 0. Okay. Now, you're going to take your answer and divide it by x minus 3 so that we can get it to a quadratic that we're able to factor. All right, so I'm going to erase this. And I'm going to divide x minus 3 into my quotient, 6x cubed minus 19x squared plus x plus 6. Because in order to factor it, we need it to be a quadratic. And right now we still have a cubic. So what's 6x cubed divided by x? 6x squared. So that gives you 6x cubed minus 18x squared. I'm going to change my signs. Negative x squared plus x. X into negative x squared, of course, is negative x. That gives you negative x squared plus 3x. Change both signs. That gives you negative 2x plus 6. X into negative 2x is negative 2. That gives you negative 2x plus 6. Change both signs, we get 0. So that means we did it correct because we know that x plus 2 and x minus 3 are both factors. Now that you have 6x squared minus x minus 2, we can factor that to find the other two. So your a times c, 6 times 2 is 12, and your middle term, that's negative 12, excuse me, and your middle term is negative 1. So we're looking for factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 1, and that would be negative 4 and 3. This time I'm putting it in the box for those of you who use the block method. Your first term goes top left, your last term goes bottom right. These two terms can go anywhere you want to put it. Alright? Then you take out the greatest common factor each way. So this way, since both of these are negative, my greatest common factor will be -2. This way will be 3x. Up will be 2x. Up will be +1. So my other two factors are 3x minus 2 and 2x plus 1. That was the quiz. I hope this clears up a lot of your questions. Take your time, look over it, play it over and over again, practice these problems over and over again until you feel comfortable with it. So when you take your test next Wednesday, you will be able to do well. Thank you.